So without any further ado, it's my great honor, and this is a first for the ACTA experience, to have the Honorable Mayor of Oxford, Mississippi, to welcome you all to Oxford, Mississippi, especially those of you who this is their first time ever here. How many of you this is their first visit to Oxford? Wow.
Love that.
Thank you. The honor is mine. I am Robyn Tannehill, and it is my honor to welcome you on behalf of the City of Oxford and to thank you for coming to our community for the next few days. I'm excited to see that there are some of you that this is your first visit. I love that. I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret. Just so you know, true story, you'll be back. This place is phenomenal. I came here to school in 1988, and I'm still here, which tells you a few things. One, I'm not very creative. Here I still am. But, and I was an art major, and now I'm the mayor, so go figure. But we are thrilled to have you here. Oxford has found its way onto numerous prestigious lists over the past few years. We have been named one of the most beautiful town squares in America. We have been listed as one of the best small towns in America in which to live, and one of the most beautiful college campuses. If that was in your publication, thank you so very much. If it was not in your publication, we're still here. Y'all come on down. We're ready whenever you are. But honestly, it's an honor for us to have you here in Oxford. People say all the time, how do you get on those lists? Like, what's going on in Oxford? What's the secret sauce? And, you know, there are a whole lot of cool college towns. There are a lot of communities that have thriving downtown squares. There are a lot of communities that have tree-lined streets and great school districts. So what makes us so cool? Well, it's the people. That's what you can't duplicate in all the other towns. So I hope over the next few days that you have the opportunity to go to the square and walk around and bump into some of those people. And I hope that you feel very welcomed, and that on your flight home, that you pay the $9.95 to get the Wi-Fi, and you book your flight back. So come on back. We're going to be waiting on you. And if there's anything that we can do to make you feel comfortable while you're here, I hope you'll tell us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tannehill. And now to introduce our Provost, to welcome you to the University of Mississippi. Please welcome with me my boss, the Dean of the School of Journalism and New Media, Will Norton.
As you can tell, Samir is not a character at all. Nobody's his boss. You can't control Samir any possible way. It's my privilege to introduce to you our Provost. Most journalism programs have difficulties getting funded because provosts don't want to give money to programs that are media-oriented. They want to give money to sciences, English, history, the typical liberal arts. But we have a provost who makes his decisions based on data, and we're very grateful to have Dr. Noel Wilkin as our provost. Please welcome him.
Appreciate it. Well, thank you, Will. I appreciate that, and hopefully you will continue to benefit from the wonderful metrics that you all have been able to demonstrate over the years with the programs that you have. Again, I go back to what the mayor said, and it's a function of our people. Our people create amazing and incredible programs for our students to engage in. They create great opportunities for colleagues around the country to come here, be faculty members, and that really helps us to be the amazing institution that we are. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. Dr. Husni, thank you so much for allowing me to join you. I bring greetings from Interim Chancellor Sparks and also the entire university administration here at the University of Mississippi. I also want to thank Dr. Husni for bringing you all here. Thanks for coming, but also thank you for his efforts to get you to come to Oxford to exchange ideas, to bring together innovators, publishers, industry leaders, to share insights, exchange perspectives, and discuss opportunities that matter to you and also matter to our disciplines. As an educational institution, we're in the business of creating and facilitating opportunities that come from creating and disseminating knowledge. Many people think about the academic institution as a place where you earn degrees or a place where research is done and fields are advanced. Tonight, in my brief moment, I want to also remind you of an incredible responsibility that we have in common. We play an important role in fostering and facilitating creativity. That responsibility doesn't belong to the arts alone. According to neuroscientists, our brains will seek the path of least resistance to solutions. And in most instances, that serves us very well. In fact, it's actually helped our species to survive. Yet, the path of least resistance does not create new technology. It doesn't develop the next masterpiece. It doesn't design the next cityscape-defining building. It doesn't create Oxford or make Oxford the city it is today. That path requires connections to be made that don't lie on a straight path through our neuronal connections. Instead, it requires us to make connections to the relevant information and connections to things that we've experienced, things that we've perceived, things that we've seen, heard, and felt. And most may not think of creativity as a primary goal of an academic institution or a magazine or a publication. However, we have incredible opportunities to expand exposure to things, images, perspectives, and patterns that take people's ideas into new, exciting, and innovative directions. We plant cognitive seeds that may lie in wait for years before being activated or incorporated into a solution that takes an entire field into a new direction. Neuroscientist and psychologist David Eagleman says, creativity is not about waiting for lightning to strike or for a muse to whisper the next great idea into our ear. It's about getting out into the world, using what's around us to generate new concepts, new designs, and new perspectives. That's where we shine. That's where the industry shines, and that's where academic institutions shine. We both lay a fabric of facts and truth within the topics that we cover, but we are also populating the minds of society with a collage of perspectives, experiences, images that are all essential elements of new and creative solutions. In your industry, you bring the world to people. As the great architect Bjorn Engels said, creativity is the power to imagine the world that is not our world yet. My hope for you at this conference, that it will be valuable to you, and what you learn here, what you think while you're here, and the ideas and perspectives that you hear around these tables and from this lectern will become part of your cognitive fabric so that you can get off the path of least resistance in your work. And you can continue to innovate in ways that help you to further perpetuate creativity in society for years to come. Not just because it will benefit your industry or will benefit your operation or your organization, but we as a society are counting on it. Welcome to Ole Miss. I hope you have a wonderful conference.
In 2007, 2 years before the Magazine Innovation Center was started, Amy Lyles Wilson and her mom donated $50,000 to start a magazine center at the School of Journalism and New Media. Since her donation, many other students and friends get together and donated more money to create the Magazine Innovation Center and to name it the Samir Husni Magazine Innovation Center, which I'm humbled to say, like, I can't be any happier from my former students. One of those former students is with us today, who have contributed a lot to the Magazine Innovation Center through working with him when he was the publisher of Cotton Farming Magazine and other magazines. John Sowell is now the head of Medicare Strategic Distribution. We need Medicare too, so it's with the Aetna Group, which is now a CVS company, which is the largest drug company in the world, legal drug company in the world. So, John, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Samir. Couldn't always call you that. Thank you, Samir. Appreciate the opportunity. I'll be brief. I don't know what it is. I speak at a lot of conferences, lead a lot of panel discussions, and for whatever reason, it's always I am between the group and the cocktail hour or dinner. So I know you're hungry, so we'll keep this moving. To Mayor Tannehill, thank you. Greetings from Nashville. After last night, we're not Smashville, but we're still Draftville, and that should be good for us, right? But I still say, even though we're being invaded by 300,000 people this week for the draft and the marathon, that Oxford's the greatest place on earth. And I promise you, I know that because I grew up in Clarksdale, and I promise you, Oxford's the greatest place on earth. But do enjoy your time there, because the place I tried to get out of for 22 years is now a tourist destination, so go figure. But you guys will have a great time. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I can't say enough about Amy Lyles Wilson, her tremendous contribution. We just tried to help. What Dr. Husni, and I was one of his first students back in 1984, and it was a little chaotic, Dr. Norton, as you noted. But what we gained over time from Dr. Husni and why his name needs to be on the center is immeasurable. I spent a lot of my career in the ad agency and publishing business. Dr. Husni came to my aid when it was time to take a group of old trade magazines and kick them really hard with a very experienced company, shall we say, and it was time for revolutionary change or die. They were just going to die. And he stood with me, and he stood behind me, and he helped me rebuild those publications. And since then, I've had the opportunity to work with him professionally on several occasions. But in thinking about what the Center for Magazine Innovation means and why Dr. Husni means so much to it is, and students, I want you to hear this. I don't know how many of you are from around here or this neck of the woods. I don't know how many of you have heard, well, that's the way we've always done it. I hate that phrase. I detest anyone who utters that phrase. And what he taught us was how to innovate, when to have the vision to innovate. Something's got to move. Poke the skunk. Move it. It might get ugly. Something's got to change. Thank you for that. To have the wisdom to know what to keep and what to release, because you've got something, you've got equity. Know what to keep and know what to let go of. But most importantly, as a student, as a professional, as a business person, have the courage to stick it out. Every day in corporate America, we live through, I can't even tell you, and my wife will attest to the calls today and the intensity of the calls today and the change and the evolution and the speed of how market segments are just revolutionizing. I am blessed to live on the bleeding, painful edge of that, because that guy and the guy sitting next to him helped me have the wisdom and the courage to know how to make changes and make an impact. So thank you for that. Dr. Husni, it is an honor to be back with you, and it is an honor to see you honored for all that you have done. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, I promise this is the last thing before I let you eat. I have to thank our sponsors. You see their names on the without whom this event cannot take place. So I'm truly thankful for Hearst Magazines. I think Rachel is here from Country Living. Thank you. The James Elliott Company. Jim, thank you very much for all your support. Meredith, our keynote speaker who will be introduced later, Stephen Orr, is here. Thank you. Democrat Printing. Thank you. LSC Communications. Thank you. Modus Communications. Thank you. Advantage CS. Dan, thank you. Bonnier Corporation, they are here with their money but not, and their magazines. But nobody was able to come this year to the conference, but we do thank them and take their money. Issue, Joe, thank you. Media Radar, same as Bonnier. We'll also take their money and thank them, and although they are not here. SAPI, thank you, SAPI paper. Advantage Circulation Consulting, Doug, thanks. Bauer Media Group, same thing. We'll take their money and wish them all the best, and hopefully next year they will be with us. Delta Magazine, Scott and Cindy, thank you. Domtar Paper, the newest comer to the sponsorship of the ACTEX, thank you, Ashley. And Freeport Press, same applies like the rest. If I forget any of the sponsors, or if you'd like to sponsor a future ACT experience, you can see me anytime during those 2.5 days. I'll be more than happy to chat with you and take any check you are willing to write. So, sponsorship is good. All the money goes to a good, like this good dinner you are going to have now. So without any further ado, dig in, enjoy your meal.
My name is Mackenzie Ross, and I'm a senior at the University of Mississippi, and I am a magazine student under Dr. Husni, and I have the honor of introducing tonight's keynote speaker. He is the Vice President and Group Editorial Director of the Meredith Corporation and Editor-in-Chief of Better Home and Gardens. It's my honor to introduce Stephen Orr.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much. And I just want to do one more salute to Samir for pulling this together. I mean, it's quite a feat in the 9th year to bring all of us here and people that are here local as well. But it's quite a feat to do this from a media standpoint, and also to be on the radar as Mr. Magazine nationwide is really an accomplishment. So once more for Samir, please. And it's my first time in Oxford, and to the mayor, it's a beautiful town. And I had such a great walk. I had been on the plane since 6 this morning, so I took a walk to the square, and then I walked down to the William Faulkner House, Roanoke, and I had a really nice tour there, and I walked back and made it safe and sound. People looked at me funny because I was walking as a New Yorker, but we had a great time. So thanks so much for having us here today. So I'm the editor-in-chief of Better Homes and Gardens, which is, depends on how you count it, the largest consumer monthly in the country. I've worked at the Meredith Corporation for 3.5 years. I live in Des Moines, Iowa, and New York City. And my career has been in magazines for 30 years in New York City, mainly a lot of Condé Nast titles. I've worked at Martha Stewart, Condé Nast Traveler. So I've really seen a lot of changes over those years in magazines. And I want to tell you a little story about what we do at Better Homes and Gardens to try to reach our consumers in this new landscape that we have. And the media landscape has never stopped changing, but I feel like as we've been discussing today, and as you'll probably discuss over the next 2 days, it just changes more and more quickly. So I want to talk a little bit about quality, heritage, and then some of the disrupting that's happening that makes both of those things a bit of a challenge. And then hopefully we'll end on a high note. Heritage is a big part of what we do at Better Homes and Gardens, depending on how you count when the magazine was founded. It's coming up on its 100th year in 1922. It was started very much a family operation and by the Meredith family in Des Moines, Iowa. It was started as Fruit, Garden, and Home. At some point, I was reading some of the histories of the magazine. I think the New York advertising crowd, even in the 1920s, felt like that name was hopelessly agricultural, you might say. So early on, there was a kind of a discussion to change it to Better Homes and Gardens, so it became Better Homes and Gardens. E.T. Meredith was the founder of the company, and that's our headquarters in Des Moines. And E.T. Meredith, his granddaughter, Mel Meredith, is still chairman of the board and highly involved with the magazine, so it's really nice to have that family lineage in Des Moines as well. I liked this. This is the first editor of Better Homes and Gardens, Chesla C. Sherlock. How's that for a name, right? That sounds like an editor's-in-chief name. If you're writing a novel, they would say it's too much, right? They'd say it's a little too much. But I like this. We had a definite field in mind, and that was the homemakers living in houses in cities, towns, and suburbs. We do not direct our appeal to any particular group. We had in mind the progressive home lover, whatever his station in life, who was sincerely fired with the desire to make his home and the quality of living going into that home better. And we still use that same ideology. It's the same, basically, mission statement in many ways, is making life better for people and providing inspiration for that. Early on, the covers and the way the magazine was styled, and some of the things I read from people early on, was that they wanted to use sentiment to help connect to the reader. And when I say sentiment, it's in this old-fashioned sense of sentimentality, like kind of the heart of your home. They use a lot of these illustrations. This one's a little weird to me. The guy kind of fell in the snow. I don't know what's happening with him, but it doesn't really look like a great Christmas to me with what's happening with poor dad. I don't know what's happening there. But so anyway, so they have a lot of sentiment. The magazine still has that. We still try to connect with our readers at a heart level that I'll talk about even at the end. I'll show you some examples of how I try to do that. But sometimes I think Better Homes and Gardens, when I mention it to people, they often mention their mother or their grandmother, which I like, but also I would like to get the granddaughter and the grandson as well. So one thing I also admired when I started to work here was that Better Homes and Gardens has always shown trends. You can see these are covers and stories from the years, and you can see it's a very trend-forward presentation. And some of these I would even hesitate to show today. I would think they were too edgy for our reader, some of the more modern 70s stuff. But they had a lot of modern houses, a lot of technology, certain things that we claim we invented, which are hard to prove, but they're in our kind of, we say it, no one's proven us wrong. We're supposed to have kind of invented the usage of the word family room and the idea of the family room. We're supposed to have invented tossed salad. Now, when I say tossed salad, evidently salads used to be much more kind of formal and composed. You can look back at old cookbooks, like kind of like lettuce leaves laying there, and then there's like gelatin and maybe some heart of palm in the middle, that kind of thing. I think what we popularized, I love this, crisp, crinkly, and delectably cool. There's something about a salad bowl tossed at the table or borne in all glistening from the kitchen that's turned even salad-eating husbands into lusty rooters for green toss-ups. That deserves a round of applause, right? and I think if there's any editors in the room, your red pen is tingling right now because there's that phrase, kill your darlings, which is what you do when you write, is you kill your special phrases. This has so many, you'd be a bloodbath, right? Lusty rooters for green toss-ups. And my food team found the article, I think from 1938, and that's the article where we first started writing about tossing a simple salad at a bowl at the table is kind of one of the things we were perpetuating in 1938. We're supposed to have also helped popularize the backyard barbecue and the popularity of that. So these are some of the Better Homes and Gardens things we claim credit for. If you're from another magazine, you want to tell me that we will have to have a fight. We'll have to have documentation. But we are also famous for our Red Plaid cookbook. That is something that most of us probably grew up with or have someone in our lives or a grandmother who had that book. The Red Plaid is a trademark. This is the new 17th edition version with a new design. It's much more photographic. It just came out last year. This is another thing we say. It's kind of hard to prove. At a 100-year-old company, you get a lot of folklore, so you might as well run with it. But it's the best-selling book after the Bible and the dictionary, if you count all of them. Okay, fact checkers go. Any fact checkers? Nice, go. So all this baseline of history is a really strong bedrock of quality for any brand, and so it's something you don't want to squander when you're making a magazine. And as I said, I'd worked at a bunch of different magazines in New York when I got this job. I really did feel like it was a big responsibility to not mess it up. My boss, my CEO, the first CEO, he recently retired, Steve Lacy, who is a very dynamic CEO, if anyone's ever met him. Or seen him on the dance floor at an event. He's quite a dancer. But he told me when my first interview, he said, so Better Homes and Gardens is a big ship, like a big cruise ship, and you're going to be at the helm, and you want to steer it in that new direction that we've identified with you, and we're going to steer it in that new direction, and if you yank the wheel, the ship's going to fall over and we're all going to drown, so don't do that. So I didn't try to yank the wheel. I've been trying to steer it subtly forward. Some of the things that make it kind of challenging to do that are the way we consume media now, reaching people on their phones, right? And, I do this once in a while because I like to be on my phone. I'm like anybody else. I get most of my media from my phone. I read most of my news off my Twitter feed, which I've carefully curated. I look at Apple News. I'm not on Facebook anymore. And Instagram. Instagram actually, I was saying to someone a minute ago, we'll talk about algorithms in a minute, but Instagram decided I was a woman when I left Facebook. And I thought that was something weird. And then there's a New York Times article, a reporter said the same thing happened to him. And it's because I'm not tethered to that Facebook profile anymore. And because I'm following so many classically women-oriented things on Instagram for my job, because I love cooking and gardening and other things. I know that's not what all women like, but it is kind of a classic thing. They now think I'm a woman, so I'm getting served a lot of advertising for women, which is pretty funny. But we'll talk about, and as a person of my age, I like thwarting algorithms, so it's a score from me. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But as someone who's making a print magazine, we have a very large digital and a website. We have a large social following. We have video. We're working on all platforms, and we're trying to reach these people who are on their phones. And as you know, it's really hard to do that because everybody's attention is so distracted. The other big issue we have is the advertising climate. And so if you're doing advertising-supported media, you know how hard it is to compete with these guys and their algorithms. And they change them all the time, and I'm not here to beat up on them, but I kind of am. But it's just one of the things where we're constantly reacting to what they're doing. And as a magazine creator who's been doing it for a while, I don't like that so much because it doesn't affect our content. What happens with us is that we have to do more and more in advertising that we didn't do before. And one of those things is integrations. I call them integrations. It's where the advertising and the editorial have to communicate and create something together to get the advertising. Now, that used to be a huge no-no when I started at my jobs. You wouldn't even talk to anyone from sales and marketing. You were on a different floor. There was this wall, right? The wall is gone. It's way gone. We still, though, are always trying, at Meredith and at Better Homes and Gardens especially, we are always trying to maintain quality. And when the advertising and the RFPs come in, we really want to make sure we're not tricking our readers. We want to make sure the reader knows that it's a partnership with an advertiser. We want it to be where the advertiser and the reader and us as content creators are very happy to be doing this together. And we're always trying to make sure that we serve that up in a way that's transparent, but also working for all. But it is a real challenge these days if you're a content creator, especially in print, but any form of content where you're trying to meld all of these things together. It's a whole new world, and I'd say a big part of my job and my executive editor's job is fielding RFPs from advertising. And that didn't happen before. What we used to do before was we would, and I still try to, sometimes I just beg, we create a beautiful space for you. Don't you just want to advertise in it? They want to modify everything to get in. So they'll ask you, do you have this content? Do you have that? Do you have this? Do you have that? And it's just a new day, and it's a new reality. So it's just another thing that we're dealing with as content creators that is a challenge, but also there is ways to do it really well. When you see a good one, you really notice it. Influencers. So I don't know if there's anybody who calls himself an influencer in the room. There are some very good influencers out there. When I'm using this term, it's a person whose reputation is built almost solely on their social media, mostly Instagram. They have large followings. Advertisers have started to pay them for integrations. You'll see the integrations with a hashtag ad sometime. You'll see, they can be done well or they can be cheesy. So I'm pointing it out as something that we actually like to work with influencers, the good ones. And like any media creator, you don't want to be associated with the ones that are hackish and are just doing it for the money. And you can spot them. But it is a new reality in the media landscape that there are self-made content creators and media people who are loosely called influencers. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just quality is what matters there. Finding the people who are doing it well. There's so many people we find to do stories on who could be called influencers who are actually really talented content creators. They're just doing it themselves. Their phone allows them to be somewhere, not in a media center, maybe not New York, they can be anywhere, and they could be an amazing food person with a vegan specialty, And we'll do a story with them because they're so good at what they're doing. You know, it's not like the old days where you had to be an editor, and there's good in that as well. This is one thing that I have to worry about a lot, and this is something I find on our social media and our digital, and I'm going to put examples up of a lot of brands, including my own, where we're still struggling. This is an algorithmic area of content creation that I call the Waze-ification of content, which is like Waze, the app you use to go anywhere. The algorithm within Waze is constantly learning and telling you where to take your car, right? So let's say you're on the highway and it says, oh, there's a blockage, so it reroutes you through a neighborhood, some poor person's neighborhood, but you're part of 60 cars that are weaving through this neighborhood. Have anyone done this before? Yeah, you've all done it, right? And you don't know where you're going, right? You have no idea. You're like driving by people's houses and they're like, what are you doing here? This is a little tiny little street, now it's a thoroughfare. And your algorithms are telling you what to do. So my point with this is, algorithms are very important. They're part of our lives. I'm not trying to sound like grandpa, but I do worry if we just yield our brain over to the algorithms and we don't maintain the algorithms for quality. We need human brains they work for us. All too often I see, let's say you get in an Uber or a Lyft and your guy's driving and he's using the app or he's using Waze. Often the driver, it happened to me the other day, driver doesn't know where they're going. I can see when they're doing it, they never kind of make the map smaller. They're just doing each turn. And maybe I'm old, but I want to know where I'm going on the whole route. You know, I want to kind of judge it. Even though the algorithm might really know best, I really want to know where I'm going. So with content, what happens is SEO drives so much content, especially on our digital stories. Everything is SEO driven. So everything is about that search engine optimization. What are people searching for? Now that is an amazing bit of info, right? What do people want? And that's where SEO really helps. So we have a lot of regular meetings where we have our digital team, we have a print team, we have a social team. I want to know what people are searching for because that means that's what they want. Now, do I want to give them exactly what they want? Yes, but I want to twist it a little bit. And I'll tell you about that in a second. So you'll look here, look at the top line, apartment therapy, Vogue, Better Homes and Gardens, Southern Living. I'd say all of the top lines, there's an author's cozy apartment, there's Cindy Crawford put it on makeup, there's some stunning Easter egg DIYs, there's mama, your how to convince mama, something about a mama and a meal. And then on the bottom is SEO stuff, which sometimes is called a news strategy, which is very unrelated to the brand. But that's what they're doing to get clicks. And everybody's doing it. So this is one of the things I'm kind of calling out to say, let's just try other ways to do this or keep an eye and know what we're doing. But if we all default to this news strategy, which is Game of Thrones, the Olsen twins, do you think Anna Wintour is going to be watching the Olsen twin film archive on Hulu this weekend? I don't think so. I mean, the Olsen twins are really good designers, fashion designers, and then I don't know why I have this gorilla named Bangui. Does anyone know about Bangui? Because I don't know why she was trending, or he. Nobody knows Bangui. And then Southern Living has Hallmark movies. What it yields is the algorithms are driving us into this Waze-ification of content, so we all travel in the same lane, and brands begin to mean less. So the more we all travel in the same lane and don't know where we're going, we all end up in the same path, which is, in this path, Meghan Markle, Meghan Markle, Meghan Markle. In this path in the middle, TV shows. Hallmark, I can't tell you how many times in my world I see Hallmark movie marathons on some people's social media. I didn't know they're so popular, but they are. But I'm the wrong market, I'll admit. More Game of Thrones, Big Bang Theory, and then shopping. Do you see how many sales are being put in your social media from brands like mine? And they're just asking you to go shop, partly because people like to shop. So you're giving them what people want to do, which is buy things. We're sending people to buy things at other companies. And I guess sometimes we get an affiliate link, we get some revenue from that, but it also is sending people away from our brand. So what I don't like about this, and I have myself there, right? And I've talked to our digital team, we're trying to be better at it. But what I don't like about what we're doing here is we're sending people away from our brands as quickly as possible. And I think we should try to put our brand as a world that we try to retain people in. I don't really want to send people away so quickly. This is two examples of SEO-determined content. These are two top performers on the BHG website. One is shaving cream eggs, which are, I think it's cool, right? It's a good idea. I think you put the shaving cream down, you put some some dye in there, and then you roll them and it creates the marbleized effect. Nothing wrong with that. That's a good idea. This one on the right, for me, is a little harder because I love to cook. So one of our top performing pieces of content online is how to boil chicken breasts. My answer is you don't. Because it's so tough and rubbery, right? But what I would do with that information is the SEO that I get from this makes me think, okay, people want clever and very easy, foolproof ways to decorate eggs. What can we do with that for a story, right? So this is a good story. It's a good way to do it, but you could branch out. You could have, because it's kind of no fail to roll them around in there. It's an easy way to do it. If it's about boiling chicken breast, well, that's fine, I guess, if you're shredding it for tacos. But let's also show people really good, easy ways to cook chicken breast. Chicken breasts have a tendency to be rubbery. Let's do things to them that don't make them more rubbery, right? So that's what I try to do as a content creator, is take the SEO knowledge and then give it that little twist. Meredith is a giant corporation. I oversee 16 magazines at the company, as well as my own. For all the students in the room, if you're good at your job, you'll just get a lot of more jobs, whatever job you get. Just be good at it, and then one day you'll have a lot of jobs. That's the way it works. But the media, what's nice about it is I get to see a broad spectrum of how all the magazines I oversee create content. And one of the nice things about Meredith is that we have a lot of data and research, and I love leaning in. We just did a big home study of new home buyers, what people want, what first-time home buyers want. And to be able to have those resources is really great for me as a content creator, because then we can really understand what people want. We can really see and hear verbatims from them, and we can tailor stories to understand that the home buying process for anybody the first time is intimidating, scary, it's a roller coaster ride. And when you've done it a couple of times, it gets a little easier, but that first time you really don't understand how hard it's going to be, so we can really help emotionally, once again, connect with our reader to help them through that difficult period. And this research and data really helps. So one of the great things about a big company like Meredith and a giant magazine like Better Homes and Gardens is this research and data helps us understand all of that. So research is important, algorithms are important, but I think they need a strong management by humans. And as we know, algorithms are the start of AI, right? The faster the algorithms are moving right now to create what we're doing, it's starting to be its own AI. And all of that has to be looked at, because the faster they're moving to decide things and to make decisions, because each algorithm, the algorithms are working to make decisions for us. And so much of what you're doing online is algorithmically driven. If you watch Netflix, and I find this frustrating, I want to see all the offerings, but Netflix will show you what it thinks you want. So you get kind of shoved into a corner. And so that's one thing I don't like about the algorithms currently, and I hope someone will change it who's smarter than me, and knows programming, is that we keep getting shoved into these corners of what the algorithm thinks we're about when we're not necessarily that. Humans are much more complicated than those algorithms know we are yet. And they've not caught up with us. So data is a big deal for us. Meredith, we have a ton of data. And I think for me, as an editor, it's the most important is my intuition. I pay attention, I keep my eyes open. I look at social media all the time, even though it's algorithmically driven, because I want to learn, I want to see what people are doing. As I said, the reason Facebook thinks I'm a woman is because I'm following a lot of women's sites, like The Cut, or Refinery 29, or all sorts of things to kind of educate myself about what women and young women are doing. And that intuition, combined with what I think is my way of living, because I do live the life of my reader. I love cooking and gardening are my two big pastimes. So that intuition is what I think informs all the rest of it and makes it work, because what we really want to do as content creators is still surprise and delight people and give them what they want before they know they want it. And that for me is the big lesson that I still hope people will take away, is if you're creating content, you want to be ahead of what people know they want already. You do want to give them what they want, in my view, but you also want you want that aha. Like every time we make a monthly magazine, we want to have the surprises, because if you want to go on our website on Better Homes and Gardens, people tend to come and look for boiled chicken breast, and they get the recipe and they leave, right? They don't spend a lot of time, oh, what else is better? They just get their information, they go. A magazine you might call it a passive experience, but our readers tell us. I get lots of correspondence. I read all the emails. I get DM'd in Instagram. I get tweeted at, not Facebook anymore, but I get all of this direct knowledge with our readers, and they really respect that they get to spend once a month when that magazine shows up, that printed magazine. To them it means, this is my time out at some point this week. Many of them will say they take it and they set it on the front table so they can see it, and they know on Thursday night when the kids are out or something's happening, that's their time with a glass of wine in their favorite chair, and it slows them down. Reading paper slows you down, and having the intuition to give our readers what they want before they know it, just slightly, then that's when they get that sense of discovery. It's not like, oh, I know all this stuff, it's exactly what I've already seen. So, I'll be quickly, what time are we at? We're good? Okay. So, I'll just tell you a little bit about how we're trying to do that at Better Homes and Gardens, which is, it's such a giant brand. I've never worked on such a big brand before. 33 million in print, 10 million uniques, digital and mobile. We have books. We have licensing at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate and Walmart. We're the second, Better Homes and Gardens is the second largest consumer licensed consumer brand after Disney. So Walmart and the real estate division make that happen. We have all these different groups we have to speak to. It's hard to speak to individuals when you're speaking to this many separate groups. Even men, nearly 7 million men. We have, we're trying to reach the next generation, and we are, but it's a constant, it's a constant work to make sure you're being relevant while also talking to your legacy reader, as I'd call them. And more millennials in all of these brands, more than Cosmo, Vogue, HTV, all of these brands as well. And so it's a really fun place to be, to talk to those new homeowners, and I'm happy to say, we've always talked about millennials. It becomes one of those words that's almost meaningless, but they're nearly 40. The oldest millennials are nearly 40. They're really entering that age where it's not all about, being with your pals. It's really about making a home. And all the things that make a home are the same things they've always been that make a home. We work really closely with our marketing and our licensing team for Better Homes and Gardens. Our lines, the line at Walmart is actually inspired by our stories. They take our images and then they take them to the product development, and then the trends we report on becomes trends that people can buy in Walmart. And I love that, because that means it's a really full circle where if people are inspired by something in the magazine, they can buy it ultimately. As I said, we try to cover every aspect of home, which our main things are gardening, home, and food. And we still want to celebrate our heritage. We have kind of a throwback Thursday on the last page, which is our throwback. And we pick these are all kind of in the 70s and 60s, but we throw back to the 30s. We try to pick a trend that we covered back in those days and then update it with product people can buy now. And we want to get credit for these themes. We just did our first ever trend issue. I wanted to really put Better Homes and Gardens forward as a trend magazine still. And we had such fun. And it was a combination of what I described earlier. It was data and research, and then just editors thinking, one editor to be like, I'm feeling pink plant syrup. There's millennial pink, there's a lot of house plants when the two come together. And so we just are able to pull this off and make a really good trend presentation. That then goes back to our data group at Meredith, and they use this as insights to then study and have data for the whole company related to trends based on home design and gardening and food. And to contrast it with trends, I want to make sure that our legacy readers feel connected, that they don't feel like that we are leaving them behind. I do get some emails and handwritten letters. Sometimes when someone says I've gone too far, they let me know immediately. If I've yanked the big wheel, hopefully I yank it back a little bit. But so I tend to try to do something that's a very basic, time-honored thing and then give it a twist. So this cast iron story was inspired by, I have my grandmother's cast iron. My father grew up I'm from West Texas originally. My father grew up on a farm during the Depression, and I have the cast iron that's almost so shiny and black that you could see your face in it. Not really, but it's almost like a mirror, and it's what my grandmother cooked food for my dad and his brothers and his father 3 times a day at least during those years, during the Dust Bowl. We want to show a modern view of American families. We want to show as many different types of people as we can. It's one of the fun parts of my job is to just show all of America as much as possible. So we show as many different kinds of people as we can. We show friend families, we show LGBTQ families, we show couples, maybe mixed race or mixed heritage, and we just show everybody we can. We always want to show the people that are with the projects, because I do think that people want to see other people and learn. A big thing I want to do too is show age diversity. I don't want to just have it be a bunch of young people. I want to show cool people of every age. And the editors know if they can bring me someone in their 80s who's cool and living a fun life, I'm so happy. We're doing a story right now, we're shooting it right now, of a woman who I used to work with. She used to be the editor of Elle Decor, her name was Marian McAvoy. And she's found this whole creative life for herself in upstate New York, just making all these paintings, and she sells them online. She's got this creativity, and she's in her late 70s, and so we're doing a story on her, because I want to show all the women at that age who are at home that you can actually do this. It can be a really fun thing, and with the internet, you can sell them and make good money and be creative. She's having a great time. We want to show home entrepreneurship. When the magazine was founded, it was really based on women not working outside the home. So we always want to show women who are creative leaders in their field, usually based on home-based businesses, something related to food, cooking, or gardening, or one of the others. And DIY and how-to is very much part of what we do, because our readers want to do everything. They don't just want to flip through and have a passive experience. They want to do some of the projects. And as I said earlier with the research, we have a BHG First column, which is really targeted to people who are doing things for the first time, but also, let's say you've done it 30 times, there's some tips in there that you might learn from. One of the big challenges, and I don't know if all the media people in the room have had this issue, but I've had a hard time finding a franchise or an idea that works across what I would call all burners, so all platforms. So something that works in print, video, digital, social. Is hard sometimes, because sometimes the digital needs are so different than the print goal, or video is different from that. This is the very first one we've come up with that's working across all burners. It's a contest we just launched this issue. It'll be judged this summer, and it's America's Best Front Yard. I like it because it's kind of patriotic. I like the front yard aspect because it's kind of where we put our best foot forward, but also, that's a bad pun, I didn't mean that, but also it's where it gives people a sense of instead of doing all the backyard options, the front yard is a little more finite, so we're going to be doing a contest and then photographing the winner and running it in the September issue. But this is exciting for us because it has PR potential. This is the kind of holy grail, is to find an idea that works over all platforms as a content creator, and not just one. And then, coming toward the end, one of the things that people want to do more and more is shop. That's why Marie Kondo exists, I think. But we're trying to not fill people's houses with too much stuff. But we do want to make the magazine more shoppable. The relaunch of QR codes, which, we had been through the QR code experience a few years back. Now it's so easy because you just open your phone and it takes you right there. We're trying to use those more in the magazine because it's a good way to get to something that you can buy. We have our own BHG shop, which has affiliate links within it. So people just, and it actually is what they want, because most of the emails we get is, where can I buy that? They want to say, what's that rug on page 68? I want to buy it. This is a little more straightforward, but also we use the QR codes to easily get to video. I don't know where that one goes. Are you doing it? I think she's doing it. Are you doing it? Did it work? It'll actually work. Yeah, zoom out and see if it works. Oh, I think it goes to an okay place. Should have tested that out. But try it, Samir, see if it works. But what they do is it gets you right to the thing. So say you want to show a video related to a rose garden, that QR code takes you right there. Eh? Did I go, Samir? You got it? It's my Instagram, maybe. Oh, sorry. Oops. I got a new follower. No, I think that was the one that was going to the ed, that was on the ed letter. But I'll just end with a few examples of what I love about making a magazine is, and I do love digital, and I do love social, and I do love video, but I really love making magazines on paper because you get this artistry that I find you can't get very easily sometimes in other places, especially at my mass scale with our digital. There's so many beautiful digital, but at my scale, the digital has to be much more hardworking. So we get to do stories like this one, where we go to a heritage festival, a festival of heritage squash and pumpkins in Northern California, and we get to show all these people who've grown these amazing squash and pumpkins. That's stuff that no one's SEO searching for, but we love it because it's humans, it's horticulture, it's all sorts of people. We get to have our food company, my food editors say, we think mushrooms are the new kale, the new Brussels sprouts, right? And they have a little data, but they're like, no, mushrooms are it. Mushrooms, they have a lot of health potential. See, you love mushrooms, right? They have a lot of health potential. It's a good meat substitute. So we get to do a beautiful story. I'm so lucky to work with a very talented team of creators, both the editors, but also our creative director, and the art team is so great. I was able to bring my creative director, who I'd worked with at House and Garden some years ago. She'd been down in Birmingham at Southern Living, and she came up to Des Moines, and she's our creative director, and she does a beautiful job, Jennifer Madera. Don't hire her if you're in the room. And then kind of push it a little bit. Like, Better Homes and Gardens is supposed to be accessible. It's supposed to be easy, but sometimes I want to push them a little bit. And so I asked my editors, how hard is it to make those little, I guess they're hazelnuts, I can't remember. Little hazelnuts with those little things, and they're like, no, it's not hard, and they'll show me in the kitchen that they can do them in a few minutes. So everything we do, and if it's a little more professional looking, we want to make sure it's as accessible as possible, but also inspiring, because what the readers come to us for is a break in their hectic week, a break from the endless, ever-shifting news cycle. They just want a moment of peace and respite from all of that, and we want to be able to give them that in the most beautiful way. And then able to show, I loved this July 4th story. We had a July 4th story with this Chavallo Wilson Debriano is his name. I'm happy I remembered that. And he has a burger marinade, and our food editor found him at the Fancy Food Show. And we went to do a story at his house, and his whole family came over, as you can see. So that was a beautiful story, and it's just fun to show the people behind the stories, the people behind the food, and to create something very inspiring for everybody. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. This is just people contacting me through mainly Twitter and Instagram, and I always write my editor's letter to be fairly emotional. I try not to be overly sentimental. I try not to be too tugging at the heartstrings, but I try to write about a real emotion in every editor's letter, not just a preview of what's coming up in the issue. And it's usually thematically tied to the issue in some way, but it's always got some emotion in it, and people really respond to that. I get the most correspondence on those letters because people relate to them, and that's what all brands are trying to do, and all content trying to do, is to reach out and connect with your consumers. So that's that. Should I take questions? And I apologize if I spoke too quickly. I almost feel like I didn't breathe. Sorry about that. I should have had 2 wines. I only had 1 glass of wine. Hi, John.
You talked about brand and
So he's asking about how do you maintain brand identity and quality with all the challenges we currently have, and you felt like it dipped down and now there's a conversation rising back up. Is that correct? So yeah, I feel the same way, and I think a lot of it has to do with all the things we've been seeing with Facebook and how, let's be honest, we gave it over to them, traditional media people, we did it. We just did it. They didn't make us. We gave them everything for free. And now we don't have that money anymore, right? And we don't have that content anymore. It's too late to go back. But I do think the backlash against Facebook, which we see, You can see, I follow a lot of, other than this, I follow a lot of world news and political stuff that I don't tweet about because of my job. But, you know, what's happening in Sri Lanka where they had to turn off the social media to keep the misinformation and propaganda from spreading. But on the other hand, think of a country that turns off its social media during a crisis. It's scary. So that whole thing is so scary to everybody. So I think people are starting to realize, like the algorithms, like humans need to control this. Stop giving it away. Like we have to be in charge of this. We're the boss. Like humans are the boss. And I think as a content creator, as a human, it's my job to make sure that Better Homes and Gardens stays on track, remains the brand it's supposed to be. We look at everything from a brand quality standpoint. And that's why I will butt heads with people. I've had recent head-butting with people I work with about when I don't think they're up to quality, you know? And I'm not trying to be old-fashioned. I think the conversation a few years ago would be like, well, you're being old-fashioned because this is the way digital's going. And now I'm like, no, quality matters wherever you are. So don't call me old-fashioned because I want quality. You know, when quality becomes old-fashioned, we're doomed because we all know the more information's coming at everybody all the time. And think of us all with our monkey brains going between email, it's a Buddhist thing, but I'm not Buddhist, but you know, it's like email, it's like you're looking for coconuts, right? Email, Instagram, Facebook. Email, Instagram, Facebook, looking for coconuts, right? Like that. And we all do it. Every time you have a free moment, you're like, oh, let me see who likes this, you know? And what you're doing is we're losing track of being able to have people trust us. The more we give all that stuff away, I think the more people need more and more guides. As editors, we can be guides in all this information, and more, I think people realize they need guides and leaders. So I hope the conversation, as you're saying, is turning back more toward quality, more toward curated content, less algorithmically driven. And I just wish some of the algorithm writers who work at some of those companies would focus on quality more. Sorry, it's a long-winded response. Did I answer it, kind of? Sorry. Don't, if I say, okay.
What can you tell us about the adoption?
It's slow, but it's... Can you repeat the question? Oh, he's asking about engagement and metrics on QR codes. We were surprised how many we got just in an early issue we did, and most of the Meredith magazines have trotted them out in the past 2 issues, and I think the highest engagement was Rachel Ray for some reason, and then we were second. And then some people, we did about 5 in ours, and then some brands did 16 and didn't have as much engagement. So it's still kind of the Wild West. But I think as we try to educate people, we actually have a house ad that educates people, and then in my ed letter, I told people what you should do. I imagine some of my readers just taking their phone and pressing it all over the page, and you know, this isn't working, but hopefully they get what you're supposed to do. But yeah, it's still early days, but I think I'm hoping it'll grow more than the last time we tried QR codes. Yeah.
One final question. Go ahead.
That you showed was because it didn't look like sponsored content. It looked like editorial.
It's a variation of those things. So we have different levels that we do. The one that, you know, advertisement is one of those things that doesn't exist as much as it used to be. So there's different phrases like brought to you by or in partnership with or sponsored by. And then I always want them kind of separated. So we've invented some units that are kind of adjacent to or kind of around editorial, but they're kind of like a little sidebar, and they're labeled. So that way it'll say, you know, and sometimes one line we have not crossed at Meredith, which I really don't want to cross because it'll just yield a whole bunch of trouble to me, because we're food magazines, is listed ingredients, brand name listed ingredients. We haven't been doing that because once we do that, it'll wreck all of our, you know, you'll have to make something with fluffernutter when you don't want to or whatever. But that's the only one I could think of. But you see what I mean? But it is a wiggly line. We say it's a combination of all of the above. Sometimes it's advertisement or sponsored by or brought to you by or in partnership with. It's a bunch of different phrases. And I can tell. Well, we're trying to think of ways that we can answer the RFP and give. So we're always pushing back. It's a constant. It takes so much time. where we used to just get the money. So now it's a constant back and forth with like, will they accept this? Okay, well, they want this. Okay, well, often what they ask for, we'll say, we can't do that, we can do this. And then we just keep trying to reach the middle. But sometimes our RFPs also go over 17, not 70, they go over 8 brands. So then what we have to do is, sorry if this isn't too in the weeds for people, but it's a big part of the business. So when we all get this RFP and there's 8 brands, we'll just get on the phone, all editors-in-chief, we'll get on the phone, and we'll be like, okay, what's everybody prepared to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Where do you go? What works for your brand? And then we try to come up with a solution, and then that goes back to the marketing person or the corporate seller, to the agency or the client, and then comes back. And often it's like we need an answer by noon. Do you guys know that? Who knows that? I mean, it's always by noon. Deadline noon. And I'm like, so we're like, okay, every editor-in-chief in the company, drop what you're doing and get on the phone so we can talk about this thing. So it is what's happening right now, and it is hard. And I think it's a huge challenge for media and content. And we're all trying, as you're saying, we're trying to defend the quality and still have the doors open.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.